welcome to Detroit in Black and White. I'm Adolph Mongo. This is the Wednesday edition of Detroit in Black and White. Allan Lengel, co-founder of Deadline Detroit. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Good evening. Good evening.
Vanessa Moss.
Good evening. Hello, Allan. Hello, Adolph, and hello to all of you that are watching us watching the greatest show on these YouTube streets. You can catch us on all social media platforms. You can also participate two ways. One, you can make a comment in the comment section, or you can use your phone, camera, put it up to this link, and come on into the room. Good evening, Dwayla. Good evening, Derek Henry.
Okay, let's get this out of the way quickly. We were talking before we came on about $59 million dollar judgment against what's his name, Bill Cosby.
How you know his name?
Bottom line is, we have seen these big judgments before. I'm not saying he gonna have to pay any money. Do you think he's gonna have to pay $59 million, and the court gonna come and say, boom, nope, you owe him 10, 5, whatever. I don't know. I'll go to the attorney.
So here's my take on this. Number one, he could have avoided this $59 million.
He didn't deal with it, did he?
He didn't even have to deal with it. He could have said to the lady, "What is it that you want?" and cut the check. To me, I view it as his arrogance. His arrogance said, no, we're going to fight this. Before they even got to trial, you had the discovery stage. You have so many things that happen before you even get to trial. In some districts, they even make you go to mediation. When you go to mediation, mediation, what they will do is they will put a number on how much they think this case is worth. I know here in Michigan, they do that. And guess what? If you say, I don't want it, and you lose, guess what? You may have to pay.
Well,
if you say, I want it, and the other side says, I don't want it, and you prevail, you get more. For him to sit there and say, hey, the same arrogance that got him into the criminal trouble that he was in, unfortunately for him, due to them making a huge mistake, he lost some time sitting in prison, but he could have cut the check. How many times have we seen people, and Allan, I'm sure you've covered it in news articles in the media, how many times have we seen people sued? And guess what?
We saw it here.
Let's write out the check and get rid of it.
We saw it here in Detroit with Gary Brown. All he did was sue the city when they unjustly fired him and demoted him and said, we're not giving you your pension. He done served over 30 years at the police department, 20 for 30 years. And all he wanted was to be made whole again and we be able to retire with his pension at his higher rank. They said, and that's Kwame and his minions said, fuck Gary Brown. And guess what? Gary Brown got paid. I ain't mad at Gary Brown.
And then not only did he get paid, he was rewarded. He's over there sitting over the Detroit Water and Sewage.
He was on the city council for 4 years. Got paid.
Right.
Got paid with the damn water department. He's there for life.
Yeah.
You know what? Not that he knew anything about fucking water. He didn't know shit about water, but I'm sure, smart as he is, he learned a lot. Allan, you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. It was broken down, I guess, $19.25 million for pain in the case of Bill Cosby, $40 million for punitive. His lawyer.
You think he's gonna pay $59 million? I'm serious.
No, I mean, I'm sure.
I'm not saying he's not going to pay anything.
He'll appeal. I mean, look, he'll appeal.
Yeah.
And at some point, the person either wants some money or they're willing to go through the appeal process.
They want some money. They 89 years old. He on drug. The motherfucker. I'ma tell you. When what's his name? Damn, I can't think of the judge's name. He died. Willie Lipscomb.
Okay.
Willie Lipscomb, the late Willie Lipscomb. He was a 36th district court judge. That was my guy. He told me years ago. He said he went to a meeting at a church. Bill Cosby was there. He said the way Bill Cosby talked to those mothers that was there that lost kids and stuff, that he basically blamed them for their kids getting killed in the street. He said it's ironic that years later his son get killed the same way. And then he said, and I never forget this. He said, you know that MF was in deposition, and he admitted that he drugged women and had sex with them. He said he ain't shit, and this was years before this thing happened. Everybody that knew Bill Cosby say he was a real asshole. He prosecuted his daughter that he had out of wedlock because she found him, and she said, "You know, I've been living on the streets. You know, you my father," and he had her prosecuted for fucking harassment and shit. You know, he was one dirty son of a bitch. And there he is. You know, it's like, hey, Jello Pudding. That's his famous shit.
Talking about Jello pudding.
Yeah. You know, it's unbelievable.
So, you know, when I read it yesterday, I said to myself, oh my gosh, the arrogance of this guy. He could have cut a check and that be it. But he decided, no. Going to fight it. So even if those people, even if she does not get $59 million, how much money are you spending to appeal and do all of that?
Because he's gonna. I keep saying that he took some money and hid it. Well, his wife, if she was smart, she she got caught up in all this, but she know that he was a real asshole. You know,
she had to. I mean, she know him in ways that nobody else knows him. Yeah. So, I just think it was just $59 million. $59 million.
Yeah. Well, it was saying it said, but an expert witness or lawyers called to the stand before the jury's final decision estimated Mr. Cosby's worth was roughly $128 million. So.
Well, you know, all of it, all they got left is to get some money. That's all they got left. And when you got most of these women are in their 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, you know. But I want to know, when are they going to expose the Epstein of the 60s? Who do you think that was?
Who? Who's the Epstein of the 60s?
Hugh Hefner.
Oh. He did.
Hugh Hefner was the Epstein of the 60s. That if he wasn't, that was Bill Cosby's best friend.
Right.
They were best friends, and he gets a pass. This motherfucker was fucking with.
Has passed.
What?
He has passed.
So what? Epstein is dead. So what?
I'm just saying he literally has passed. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, I will submit that the things that went on at the Playboy Mansion that not only did Hugh Hefner know about, I believe that he helped
participated,
facilitate, fostered, all of that. Had an environment in which he encouraged that kind of behavior. For what I understand, some of the things that Bill Cosby did to these women, in fact, happened at the Playboy Mansion.
And Hugh Hefner was doing it too.
Huh?
He was doing it too.
Yeah, what they made it seem as if this guy walking around in a robe 24/7 with some house shoes with these very, very, very young women, 19. And, you know, one of the things I'm thinking about is, you know, Diddy is sitting over in jail messing around with women. You know that they abused these women, took advantage of them, but they hold this guy out to be some kind of hero. I just think it's ridiculous.
Well, they got R. Kelly, right? The same way. My one of my college roommates majored in music, went to Interlochen. From Chicago. He played with R. Kelly for 3 years. He said he had to leave. He said because R. Kelly was unbelievable. He chased these young girls, had these young girls come to his hotel room and shit. And he said R. Kelly stayed in a 5-star hotel, and the band and the backup singers stay in a Fleabag motel.
Oh, really?
And so my ex roommate played with the OJs for the last 10, 15 years of his life. He passed away of cancer, but he said there's a big difference between Eddie Levert and R. Kelly. Eddie Levert was a family man, and treated them just like he would treat the members of his group. He said, but R. Kelly, he was saying that shit about R. Kelly years ago, but and R. Kelly, great songwriter, great singer, but it's like, boom.
You still listen to R. Kelly's music?
If I see, I'm gonna turn it off when it comes on. I still watch some of the only movies I don't watch with John Wayne come on with his sorry ass. But you watch some of these movies of folks, you find out their political views. I remember watching some movies, the 30s, 40s, and some of my favorite movies. I look them up, and the star of the movie, they believe in white supremacy and all kind of shit. And it's like, God damn, Walter Brennan from the Real McCoys and from TV and a lot of movies. He was born in Massachusetts, but he hated black people so much that when Martin Luther King, he was on a set doing a TV show, the guns are Will Sonnett, and they said Martin Luther King got killed. He clapped and said, "Great." He was a asshole, communist asshole, etc. I said, how can you watch shit like that? Charleston Heston, who spent lots of money during the civil rights era, and he supported integration, the movement, etc. He got old and he became just the opposite.
Right.
And you say, well, if you like the 10 Commandments, or if you like some of his movies that was in, do you cut it off?
Right.
Or do you say, Michael Jackson? There's folks that don't want to, they hate Michael Jackson, but how can you not like his music? Do you turn it off?
I turned it off.
I listen to it. I listen to.
You know what? I watched the HBO special.
Yeah, I remember you said that. I didn't believe it.
And there were two different people talking who I thought their stories were pretty credible, and I think he was a pedophile.
Elvis Presley.
But what about those? I don't
know Elvis Presley either.
He was 15 years old or 14. But the point that I'm trying to make is this: R. Kelly, if his music come on, I'm not turning it off.
And nobody turned off Elvis. Nobody turns off a Jerry Lee Lewis music. He married his 13-year-old cousin.
Right.
Got her pregnant.
Right.
No, listen, nobody turns them off.
Right. Bill Cosby. I just recently watched a few of his movies. The movie where the guy played JJ, he was a boxer. What is that?
Jimmy Walker.
Yeah, and then he had the two movies with Sidney Poitier. Those movies were hilarious. I watched them. I'm not going to stop watching his movies, but I understand
Do
that
we stop?
he's a bucko.
Do we take Thomas Jefferson out of history books because
Absolutely
he raped the slaves? Do we take
not.
Andrew Jackson out of the history books because he forced thousands of Native Americans the Trail of Tears? And when people say, "Oh, that was his time," that's how they were. But there was people that was in that time that said that is book. The Supreme Court told him at that time, you can't do that. He said, well, make them stop me. There was the people in the military that told Andrew Jackson, man, you can't do this. You're going to kill half of them before they get to Oklahoma. Yes. So, no.
Well, I agree. I mean, we don't wipe them, but it's like Henry Ford. You know, Henry Ford. Look, the guy did amazing stuff. He was an amazing industrious, but he also was friends with Hitler, and he also hated the Jews, and he also ran an anti-Semitic newspaper. So, do we?
But we did. But you're right, Allan.
We don't wipe them out, but we tell the whole story of who these.
But we don't tell the whole story on a lot of these other folks when. We talk about, we make movies like A Beautiful Mind, and we leave out that this motherfucker hated Jews, hated black folks with a passion, but he wins the Academy Award. What is it, Russell Crowe?
Russell Crowe.
Yeah, you know, he was a Nobel. He had something was wrong with him. He was fucking schizophrenic and shit, you know. But we celebrate these folks, and we cut out the shit we don't like, right. Or we name schools after Woodrow Wilson, who was a fucking a racist piece of shit. Who, when he got elected president, he saw all these black people working for the government, and they fired everyone. He was Trump before Trump.
I look at other people, Mel Gibson, who was a flaming anti-Semite. I won't watch his movie. I used to like it. Will Smith, after he smacked Chris Rock, I said, no more. I love Chris Rock.
I can't even watch his bald-headed ass wife.
Well, that's terrible. But listen, I was never a Will Smith fan, so it was of no moment for me.
I was a fan.
I was not. Anybody who knows me would tell you he never did anything for me. Nothing. There was nothing that he wasn't funny. He could not rap. I did watch, what's that, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I was just not a fan of his. He just didn't appeal to me.
Sure.
So it was easy for me to say that I don't watch him. As far as Mel Gibson is concerned, if there's a movie that he's in and I want to watch it, I'm going to watch it. Does that mean that I think he's a great person? No. Just like I talked about Bill Cosby. But listen, it's 8:48. We have not taken a break, and we have so many people in the comment section. So can we go to break, and then we'll come back to the comment section?
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. We have several nonprofit partners who have free attorneys who can assist you. Contact our office, 313-224-5990. or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. Don't lose your family property. Some of these properties have been in the family for 4 or 5 generations. Contact us now. We're here to help.
why don't you read some of these? That's interesting. Some of these comments.
Well, first I want to say good evening to Janet overall, Derek Henry, Dwayla Boyce, Stephanie Jackson, Queen B, Derek Brown, Tracy Loftus, Allan, Les is more. Les says file motion to dismiss basis on lack of evidence. Eric said his arrogance talking about Bill Cosby is exactly why he will be paying $59 million. Queen B said, right. Kenneth Powell, good evening. He says, like and share the edutainment. Tamika Rainey, good evening. Hey, girl. Hey, Queen B. She said Gary Brown came to mind to her, too. When you mentioned Gary Brown, she was thinking about it the same time. Kenneth Powell says he's multitasking right now, but he's here. Stephanie says pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Les Moore says tell the plaintiff to take the $59 million out of the time he spent in prison. Jill Sheridan, hey girl, hello everyone. Stephanie says he drugged them. She's talking about Cosby. Jello pudding pie without money.
Jello pudding pie
wasn't going to get him many women. Les Moore says yes. The way he chastised Black people, now he finds karma. Edward Art, good evening. Eric says talk to the guy Carl Payne who played Cockroach and Theo's best friend on the Cosby Show. He cannot stand Bill Cosby and has nothing good to say about him. Stephanie said Playboy models told their stories of the celebrities they serviced, girls and boys. Les is talking about selective prosecution. Karen Winston, good evening. G Money Hollywood, hey, he said, leave Cosby alone. This man was once declared a billionaire and they stripped him of his wealth and dignity. Just like they would not prosecute the lady who lied on Emmett, they could give him the same grace. Queen B says, R. Kelly is disgusting, and the one he urinated on wrote a book, and it was wild. Stephanie says Aaliyah was 15 when he married her, talking about R. Kelly.
What about Leah's family and her uncle Barry Hankinson and all them and her parents, and they orchestrated all that shit. R. Kelly shouldn't get all the blame on that shit because they put that young girl in a situation where when she got ready to get on a fucking plane and somebody said the plane is too heavy, got too much luggage, too many people, and she said, I gotta get back to where I gotta go. There was no grown-ups, and guess what? Plane crashed.
She was grown when that happened, though.
No, she wasn't. She's 20, whatever. When I said no grown-ups, I'm not saying the age-wise. There was nobody that was smart enough to pull this bitch back and say, you can't do that.
Lord Jesus.
Yeah, I'm going to call her because they should have pulled her back. And I've been in situations. I was in a situation when I was in high school. We went to a Considine Recreation Center, 5 of us, and you know every one of us. Allan, we was in high school after track meet. We went and played basketball. We beat these guys at the recreation center next to Northern. They wanted to fight us, and they wanted to fight us. Why? Because we won. Because we was talking shit. We got out of there. One of the guys that we was with, gas station still across the street from Northern High School. He said, I'm going there. He went and got a gun. He said, I'm going to shoot this fat motherfucker that was talking shit. I'm like, that's crazy than a fuck. And one of the guys, we had him on the show, Frank Miles. He was 15. I was 17. I said, Frank, we're going to get on the bus and we going home. The other 3 said, y'all scared. I said, I'm not spending. I don't want to go to jail. He go to juvenile. We go to jail. Y'all killing somebody over a fucking basketball fucking game. And they backed down. He took the gun back over there and we left. Years later, I'm watching.
I know who you were talking about with the gun.
Yeah, I'm watching the TV and the news come on and say 15-year-old boy killed at Redford High School, waiting to go to football practice. His name was Frank Miles the third. That was my boy who I got away from the shit, and he used to go around saying all it takes is one person to say fuck it no. And when she had nobody, Leah had nobody to say don't get on the plane because it's going to fucking it's too many people on the plane. I flew on those kind of planes where they go by weight. They don't play. That's how that shit don't play.
What I gather from what you're saying, Adolph, is that she had no one that protected her when she was a minor, and no one, even though she was an adult, to give her
no, they didn't.
Give them their wise opinion. G Money Hollywood has an interesting comment. He said, I still listen to Robert's music. Step in the Name of Love is my joint, as well as Happy People. I will continue to listen. He was wrongfully sentenced. I didn't say convicted. I said sentenced. He says, no grace for men, black or white, that disrespects women in the way that he did. And they are not allegations as it relates to him. I don't know who he. I think Eric is talking about R. Kelly. Lessons Moore says he met Charleston Heston at LaGuardia. Tamika Rainey says she loved Michael Jackson.
Before you go, Bobby Sanchez said, "Did I pay that ticket yet on my red Mustang?" I got 5 tickets. They just missed all of them, Bobby Sanchez, because I was in the right. Because a fat ass, out of shape, no good, sorry motherfucker, police officer who was a disgrace to the uniform, and I said it to his face. They had 5 police cars up there for a fucking ticket. This is what Detroit. Yes, so yes, I didn't have to pay. I didn't have to pay. It was dismissed because the motherfucker was wrong. Okay, go ahead.
All right. B says the HBO documentary was bullshit. She's talking about the Michael Jackson documentary. Lessons Moore says his issue with Michael Jackson was his defamation of his black features. Kenneth Fowle says, what about these meteorites? Eric says Kelly is a no for him. Woody Allen is a no for him. Good, Mr. 1213. Good evening. Thank you for checking in on us. Stephanie says it's all history, the good, the bad. Hell, we sing in London Bridges as children. It was about killing children. This is in response to your comment, Adolph, about should we get rid of the history of Thomas Jefferson and all the other people that you talked about. Queen B says R. Kelly was hiding the girls he was on trial for molesting in his RV that he was coming to court for. He was not wrongfully sentenced at all. He raped and exploited little girls. Cosby, Presley, and Wayne are no-goes for me. So is Biden. LBJ is a no-go for me. I think the biggest problem with all of this is creating heroes out of regular people. People are people. Lessons Moore says, Stephanie says doing a good deed is not the same as being a good person. It's what you do 24/7.
What about Kobe?
Seen in the public. And Lessons Moore, my most admired artists are Nina Simone and Paul Robeson. Oh, okay.
What about Kobe?
What about Kobe?
Well, you know, he poked a woman in a whatever. He was at the resort, and she said he raped her. And when they tested her, she had 3 different semens in her shit. So she was working overtime.
You trying to say she was
Well, he had to pay her. And Holly Berry was at home by herself crying because she didn't have nobody, you know. But hey, what are you gonna say, Allan?
I was gonna say, you know, when I there's some Michael Jackson songs that I think are phenomenal, and I think they're just great, but I just can't overlook when it comes on the radio. I listen for a second, and I'm like, love that song.
Do you like Al Jolson?
Al Jolson, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the motherfucker because he made his living putting on blackface.
Right.
I'm just telling you, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah. It's some shit I don't like Bing Crosby because I cut on a movie, White Christmas, and he was in blackface.
Right.
And I don't listen. I don't watch that shit, and I don't blame you when you look at shit and you say, "Damn, I can't." You know, that fucker was an anti-Semite.
Woody Allen. I still don't know what to make of Woody Allen, but
Woody Allen. But people say that was his daughter. He wasn't married to Mia Farrow.
Right.
He never adopted her. He just what he did was wrong because he was in her life when she was a little kid, but she was grown and she decided she wanted to be with Woody Allen. Yeah, it was like the guy that was with Whitney Houston daughter. They were saying that was her brother and sister. She found the fucker on the street. Whitney Houston did. He was not any kid. Whitney Houston family was worried that he was going to marry Bobby Katrina and control her money. Christina, she was worse than Katrina, but she killed herself just like he killed himself when they did those drugs and shit. And she never married him. And that's the whole thing. They was brother and sister. That's like my mother found you, Vanessa, out on the street, and people say they brother and sister. You know, no, you're not. You know, but it's just not a good look. That's all. You know, and say it's not a good look.
Stephanie says Kobe told the helicopter pilot to fly and killed everybody.
Because I can believe that because he used the helicopter like a cab, and I'm sure they had that same shit before. They never had a problem, and then they had a problem. You know, just too bad his daughters and everybody else got died. It's too bad that he died. You know, he probably saw, but he was in a hurry. You know, when you're a celebrity, you're in a hurry. You gotta do it. You got to do the right thing. Get him. You know who I am? Yeah, you know, and shit. People told James Dean, don't drive fast and shit on this car.
Yeah, he did anyway.
And he did it anyway. And
right.
You know, and it's like boom. You know.
So I want you and Allan to respond to Stephanie as well as Queen B are talking about Kobe Bryant. Queen B she said Kobe is a bitch too, and Stephanie said, is he a bitch for telling the pilot to fly?
No, some people got beat up when Kobe died, and we had some women say, well, he raped a woman and paid her off, and people jumped on her like they, you know, they didn't want to admit. Yeah, Kobe.
Oh.
Yeah, when Kobe got caught, first thing he said, Shaq.
He told him
the same thing.
I didn't like
that. Yeah, so
what did he say? He said Shaq did the same thing.
Yeah, fuck around and mess with a lot of women. When Shaq admit, I done a lot of things. I fucked my marriage up. He said if I had to do it again, I would do it another way. But he never, when he got caught, he never said, I'm not the only one that's doing shit. You know, man, it's like
that's not a classy thing.
No, it's not a classy thing. You know, it's like, but he cut his parents off because they questioned why is he marrying a video girl? He got all this money, and they was worried, you know. And she showed that when she's a billionaire or whatever she is, that she cut her family off on her mother's side, and you know, it's like she the one went berserk when Kobe Bryant daddy and mama was selling. He left his stuff when he was in high school at his house,
right?
and he didn't want it. So one day they was like, "We're gonna sell this shit," and his wife went berserk. That's your shit. You should, yeah. It's people play the game. The Tiger Woods. They never tell the real story. That this fucker, his wife told the real story when she beat the shit out of him and tried to kill him. And they didn't tell the real story when he almost died.
I'm laughing at her doing that. I'm laughing at the way you expressing yourself.
Well, but they didn't tell the real story. Or he married the babysitter. Listen, all he did was mess with prostitutes and in fucking Vegas. Then he married the babysitter, and this has been his MO. Tiger Woods. Fuck Tiger Woods.
So
fucking bitch.
Allan, Adolph, Eric, and Queen B, they are going to see the Michael Jackson documentary. Queen says she already have her tickets.
Janet Jackson hated it.
Well, yeah.
And her brother told her, Jermaine said, "You just one jealous bitch. So shut the fuck up."
You think he talked to his sister like that? I don't know if he talked to his sister like that.
Well, that's what he basically said. Michael Jackson's nephew is playing Michael Jackson.
Right. And his
is it a documentary or like a
no, it's a movie.
Like a docudrama or something?
No, it's a movie.
But it's so there's actors.
It's about Michael Jackson.
It's about Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
How one day he went in, looked in, he said, "The man in the mirror," and he threw some white powder on his face. Voila, he was the new Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson, yeah. Well, the guy was an amazing artist. It's really, I mean,
these mothers gave their kids. They took them for sleepovers with Mr. Blinky and everybody. He went to Never Neverland. He was Peter Pan and all that shit. When you open the door, here's Peter Pan and the fairies and shit. And you leave your kid there. And so you have a problem when people come 30 years later saying this is what Michael Jackson did. Not that,
But you know what? Let me say this. We started this conversation off. We were talking about Bill Cosby, and I talked about his arrogance. And he could have just wrote a check, and we wouldn't even know about 50.
He's not writing a check.
Michael Jackson wrote a couple of checks, and
he gave a boy $20 million.
That means, look, I don't even want to go through this process. I don't want to do it. Let this go away. People do it all the time, but this guy, he decided, no, I'm gonna let the people decide. And guess what? They said we decided $59 million, and there's some other suits that's coming along. That's just interesting.
Correct me. I mean, you're a lawyer, but I think even for a wealthy person, to make a case go away, 20 million, I could say 1, 2, 3, even though you resent that, you're like, hey, this isn't true, but I want you to go away. But 20 million is kind of, it says something.
Well, Shannon Sharp gave an ugly bitch 20 million.
Who?
The former football player turned ESP superstar. He's a Hall of Famer football player. Shannon Sharp. He got a podcast that's real popular. Absolutely. He gave her $20 million.
Absolutely.
Plus some fucking poontang. He paid $20 million for poontang. God damn.
He paid $20 million to avoid a lawsuit. And so to your
point, she did sue him. He didn't know. Well, whatever.
Trial. It never went to trial.
He liked to ski. He liked to ski. He liked to ski. He liked to ski.
He liked to see.
Ski.
Lord Jesus,
have mercy. He liked to ski.
But Allan, to your point, I think $20 million is all relative. It depends on who you are, how much you have. I mean, you weigh it, okay? Because you're not just talking about paying that person. You're talking about attorney fees. That person's attorney fees, your attorney fees, is quite expensive. And the more you fight, the more you're spending.
I get it, but you know what? At some level, it's whether or not. If I don't care how much money I had, if it was a false allegation, I would not give somebody. I don't care if I had.
Listen,
So
you know,
all
Allan, do you like Earl Flynn?
Earl Flynn?
Yeah,
you know, I whatever.
Earl Flynn. He had the second trial where he was accused of raping and screwing these young girls. He was a Nazi sympathizer. Now his movies is all over the place, as opposed to one of the comics. Go back to the silent movies. Fatty Arbuckle. He got found not guilty of killing this woman, having sex with her, and shit. It killed his career, but Errol Flynn's career was great. Tyrone Power, he was messing with a 15-year-old when he died of a heart attack. I'm just telling you, these people, but they don't stop showing their movies. And what I didn't like, when they stopped showing the Cosby Show because of Bill Cosby, not because of Felicia Richard and all the others, but they show all these other fucking movies and TV shows with these folks that's undone just as vile shit as Bill Cosby. And nobody cancels them out. And I'm saying you don't cancel them out.
In Washington, D.C., there was a place, Ben's Chili Bowl, still there on U Street. Famous.
The worst shit in the world. That's some nasty shit.
But famous. And Bill Cosby used to go and get a hat. Bill Cosby was in the service.
He made them.
When he used to go there. And when he would come to town, he would get a couple half smoked, sometimes delivered. And so the family, the Ali family, which owned Ben's Chili Bowl, loved Bill Cosby. So when all the allegations started coming up, Bill Cosby's picture was still up there with a bunch of other people, Shaq, Obama, whoever. And people were giving them shit, like, why didn't you take it down? And I talked to the sons. I was eating there one day, and he says, Mom says Bill Cosby's like family. But when he got convicted, his picture finally came down.
Yeah, well, it's like Morehouse.
Family, huh?
Yeah, Spelman College, they gave them $20 million, and they took away the scholarship named after him and his wife. I said, give back the fucking money. Give the money back.
The money.
Give the fucking money back.
No.
Because Camille didn't do it. You can just rename the shit. It's like, God, man.
So, Adolph, I was told to tell you that Janet went off on Jermaine. It was not the other way around. She called Jermaine a bitch and said that he was
maybe. All of them was jealous of Michael. All of them. The only person that wasn't jealous of Michael was Rebe. The only one that didn't get her face redone. She was the real Jackson. She was the oldest Jackson. She was the smartest Jackson. She had an album that couldn't even sing. She couldn't sing, and she knew it.
Did you hear her say she's the only one who didn't get her face?
She's the only one who didn't get her face done. Ain't no question, man. And I never understood it. I'm thinking of the Williams sisters. They got their face redone and shit. I was like, God, man. Y'all don't have to get when people don't feel good about themselves. Shit, But listen, they all look like the mother. The mother is 95 years old and she looked good. What's her name? Latoya looked like Michael Jackson. Janet looked like Michael Jackson. They all of them look. Jermaine, he looked boom. But my man, who the vodka is named after, I miss him now. Tito, the one that didn't have any talent. Tito had no talent. Randy don't even count. He couldn't do nothing. They just put him in the band. It's like none of them. Michael Jackson and Janet was the only one that had the talent. The rest of them, they shouldn't have been doing nothing.
I said Tito was a heck of a bluesman and that he could really play that guitar.
Tito,
I don't know, but
people ask me what kind of vodka I want. I say I want the Jackson 5 vodka, the one that didn't have any talent, and they bring me Tito's. You know, I hated that Tito left because I can't dog him out like I used to.
Stephanie says everybody looked like Mike, but those children of his.
Well, they his kids because he adopted them, and whatever he did, they his kids. I can't get mad at him.
No,
Mike got back at his family. He listen. That's just the way the shit is. He could have been like Joan Crawford, who adopted 2 kids, and she dogged them out so bad, abused them, and then leave them a quarter. You know. People. It's like,
lady. That was a sick lady.
Yeah,
that's another one. She abused her kids. Do you stop watching her old black and white movies?
And she
was a great actress.
And she fucking adopted 2 kids from a woman who trafficked and stolen babies. That's how she got these kids. They used to steal kids. They used to force women who were single, had babies, and they took them. It's bottom line. You can go and you can watch all this. Do you get mad at Franklin Roosevelt that he had his woman at the White House when he died?
Right.
He couldn't walk or do nothing, but he had his woman, and his wife had
her woman.
They both had their women.
That's right.
Yeah,
weren't they cousins? Weren't they cousins? Like distant cousins?
Yeah, they were cousins.
Woman, and he had his woman. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, but we look at this shit and say, damn, do we cancel them out? No, but you don't have to like them. Like Lengel, you don't have to like Michael Jackson, and you don't have to listen to his music. And I listen to shit and I see movies. I click, say I'm not watching that asshole on there, whoever it is, and you move on. But then sometimes there's a movie or something, and you say, "Damn, I hate that person," but you watch it. Right. You watch it anyway because it was a good movie.
Right. It's not a moral. I mean, it's not a moral penalty if you listen to whoever you think has done something wrong. It's in your heart if you find it distasteful, knowing what you know and seeing them perform. You just don't want to be engaged in it. Nothing wrong if you decide. There's plenty of people who, they play Michael Jackson. I've seen them at city events. Like,
do you do that to Martin Luther King? He had a ton of women, and when he died, Rab Abernathy said, he liked boys too. And I said, damn, Ralph, you was with him thick and thin. So that means you were doing the same shit that he was doing. It's like Cesar Chavez. Now, they want to take away all this shit. Yep. You can't take away all the shit. You cannot. And that woman who's 95 years old, she got cred. She said she had 2 babies and put them up for adoption by him. Right. But she said, in one breath, he wasn't shit. Right. On the other hand, he changed the whole scenario of what was happening. And she gave him his props, but then she said he took what he wanted. That no question. Malcolm X was a hustler. He hustled men, and people don't want to hear that shit. They don't want to say Malcolm X. He made money letting white men perform shit on him. And he talks about the shit. Nobody wants to talk about the shit. Nobody wants to talk about Elijah Muhammad. You got to have kids all over the place with secretaries and all this shit. Yeah, well, and then you look at where a woman wrote a book 100 years ago, saying that Warren G. Harding, the president of the United States, was the father of her baby. They dogged her out so much, but yet when her daughter died a few years ago, they did the DNA, and she was the daughter of the president. She was way ahead of the game, and I, do you wipe him out and say he didn't exist? Do you say Woodrow Wilson was a racist piece of shit? Yeah, but he was still the president. You look and you look at these folks, Henry Ford and shit. Yeah, Henry Ford was a genius. He helped found General Motors and Dodge and Chrysler. He had his hands in all the shit, But he was a bigot. He just he was an asshole.
You saw Nixon. If you go on YouTube and you listen to the tapes, there's a conversation between Nixon and Haldeman, and Nixon says, "You notice all the sneaky people are the Jews? They're the spies, the Rosenbergs, Ellsberg." And then he says, "Yo, you notice? I don't know if I can't remember if he was using the term Negro or colored people." And Nixon said to Haldeman, he says, "You notice, Negroes aren't spies." And Haldeman says, "Yeah, they're not smart enough." And you hear those conversations where they're dissing the Jews, they're dissing the blacks. I'm sure those conversations go on in the White House now. It would not be hard to believe.
Well, you go down the street and you go see Orville Hubbard. They loved him in Dearborn. Right. These white folks in Dearborn worked so hard to keep black folks out of Dearborn that when they woke up one day, the Arabs took control. How ironic that they took control of Dearborn, because all they was worried about was black people coming in. And then when they looked up, they had sand niggers, as they called them. They took control of the city of Dearborn. And Orville Hubbard, they love him. And you can't say anything about him. And he was, man,
Yeah.
No, Henry Ford stole the shit. Everybody was working on the same shit. Edison didn't invent the light bulb, but he made it better, and they was all fighting each other. Same way with the telephone, and they all had one little black assistant guy who helped them do all kind of shit. Everybody was doing everything back then.
So I think that one of our viewers, I don't know who it was, but I think they made a really good point, which is, it says a lot about us as people worshiping people and holding them out as heroes. People are flawed. Every last one of us are flawed. But does that make us bad people? No, that makes us people. Those people that we're talking about, they've contributed to American history, and they're great contributions, but they also have flaws. And I think that as people, we have to recognize that. And when we do that, then you don't have to be bothered with making a choice. Oh, do I listen to him? Oh, no, I'm not going to listen to him no more. I'm not going to watch that movie. I'm not going to do this. It is what it is. Go ahead.
Well, there was a Israeli writer for the Free Press. What was his name?
Doron.
What?
Doron Levine.
Yes. Me and him, we had lunch because he was dogging out one of his columns. He was dogging out Farrakhan and shit. I sent him an email, whatever, and we had lunch. And I told him, I said, "You like Moshe Dayan, right?" He said, "Yeah, he's a hero." I said, "The fucker's a racist because," and I pulled up the article where he said the U.S. Army is weak because they got black soldiers in there. He didn't say that. When I said, "Oh, he said it," but that don't take away from what he was. And then he gonna ask me, Well, you ever heard of Anne Frank? I said, yeah, everybody in school know who Anne Frank was. I said, fucker, do you know who Emmett Till? He said, no. I said, I rest my case because I had to learn about your shit. And I said, you didn't learn nothing about who we are. And then you're going to write about why do black folks like people like Farrakhan.
Right.
I say, well, you have to the same way that there's folks that Jews like this person, like that person. I might not like. I use Moshe Dayan as an example, who said, and he said, "Fuck, the military is weak." And then when the Orthodox Jews, that I say they run Israel one time. They took the blood that the Ethiopian Jews donated and threw it out. Now they're saying that, well, they should have to convert. Well, they didn't. But the bottom line is, but do I hold that against Israel? Do I hold that against you Jewish? And you got to apologize for that. Just like I tell people, I'm not apologizing for something some black person done because they don't represent me. If they did the shit, that don't come to me and say you should apologize. They make us look bad. No, it doesn't make me look bad. Do it make you look bad, Lengel?
No, I mean, look, whenever somebody of of our race or ethnic does something like Bernie Madoff, right? The Jews go, oh no, Bernie Madoff is bad for the Jews. We don't like it, but I don't take Bernie Madoff's a scumbag, and he ripped off a lot of Jews.
Right. I was just about to say that, and really in the scheme of things, nobody talked about whether he was Jewish or not. I know I never thought of him as Jewish. I just thought of him as a crook, as the fucker forced one son killed himself, the other one died. And the only one that escaped out of all that was his wife, and they should have took all her money too, because she was all part of the shit. That's why Bobby Bonilla gets $1 million every July, because the people that own the New York Mets was too cheap to pay him his money, and they fucking say, okay, we'll just pay you. And they've been paying them how long? 30 years, 20 years? Yeah.
Before we go, I'm curious. The Michigan Chronicle has reported that Joe Tate,
ain't running.
Former Speaker of the House, is not going to be running for re-election. Doesn't know what he's going to do. I don't know enough to have a strong opinion.
Is Joe Tate?
Yeah. What's your read on him?
Joe Tate. Lightweight. Lightweight.
Okay.
Joe Tate, lightweight.
Yeah.
Went down in two. Ali said he knocked Joe Tate out in two. Joe Tate couldn't get up. Here he come. And Joe Tate knocked down. Joe Tate fucked up. That's why they lost the House, because of Joe Tate. He couldn't wait. He hesitate. Joe Tate.
Right. Yeah.
So Lessons Moore says, let him go retire.
That's right. That's right. He went to Michigan State. That was one problem.
Lord have mercy.
2, he was in the Marines. He all right on that end. 3, hey,
I know he's a nice guy. I don't really know that much how effective he was. I know
he was useless.
Yeah, I know
Queen B said he was useless. You're right, Queen B. You let him retire. July 1st is Bobby Bonilla Day. $30 million over a 30-year period. Yeah, that was because of Bernie Madoff. There's no question about it. Here we are. It is.
We're heading up against an hour, so I just want to make sure that we acknowledge we have some new people on here today. Didn't give a shout out to Karen Winston. Mr. Duckett joined us this evening. Queen Bee and Stephanie Jackson and Eric Brown have been very lively in the comment section. We love it. We have somebody new. I haven't seen this person. Is Kaluda Kyle Dunell Bay. Thank you so much for watching Detroit in Black and White. And thank you for the comments. He talked about Lewis Latimer was black.
Right. He worked with Edison, and he worked with what's his name? Alexander Graham Bell. So
okay.
yes.
And he says Allan Shirley will be watching the Tigers invade Petco Park tomorrow. G Money Hollywood, thanks. He said, Adolph, watch out. Don't be talking about my Spartans. And
well, you know, the Spartans, they died at Thermopylae. You know, 300 of them. You know, they didn't win. They didn't win that one. The only good Spartan was a dead Spartan.
Lord have mercy. So it is 9:31.
Before we go,
yes,
I want you to what we talked about earlier today. The Coleman Young, former mayor's niece.
Yes,
Kathy Volson. You know who she was, Allan, right?
I knew Kathy. I
go
actually
ahead quickly, Vanessa.
Okay, so Kathy and I knew she went to school. We went to school together. Went to Catholic school together. Went to St. Teresa's together. You've heard me talk about how Coleman Young spoke at our 8th grade graduation. That was because Kathy, we graduated from 8th grade together. She was like the daughter that he didn't have. He doted on his niece, and she left there and she went to St. Martin de Porres. A group of friends and I were talking about her the other day, and we talked about how even in middle school, she carried herself like an adult, very, very mature for her age. We seem like little kids compared to her. And while 64 to me is pretty young for her to have met her death, but she had a very, very interesting life. I mean, on the one hand, she was the niece of in my opinion, the greatest mayor of the city of Detroit ever. The world was her oyster. And then she also was married to someone that was infamous, if you will, was a kingpin. So, yeah, that was just, it's sad, but she lived a very colorful life from what I can tell.
And she also, I mean, 64, she was an old 64 in that respect. She had substance abuse problems. I don't know near the end, but for a lot of her life, she was in and out with heroin and crack and stuff. And that she had, I think, issues with her kidneys. I think that stuff catches up with you, and it's a sad story because she was actually a very sweet woman, and she, like you say, I mean, she got involved with the wrong people. She married Johnny Curry, and then he went to prison. She was dating all these dopers, White Boy Rick, and all these other guys, and the mayor was worried about her. The mayor put a detail on her and watched. They actually rented a house across from her house on San Juan to keep an eye on Kathy because she was dating all these guys, and she dated some athletes as well. Some Detroit athletes and stuff, and she, interesting life. And her father, I knew Willie. Willie Bolster, her father was.
Well, I knew her mother. And I knew some of Coleman relatives, his nieces and stuff. And it's a sad situation. And it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very much. Thank all the people that participated tonight. Be back on Friday, Detroit in Black and White, 8:30, Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. I tell you, if we had for all the people we didn't like in life, and you had to cancel them out, shit, it would be boring because there won't be nobody left to like or even look. So it's bottom line. And if you dig deep, in anybody, you're gonna find shit that you cannot stand.
Absolutely. And I will say this, the one thing about this show that I love, all of us have different opinions and different perspectives. But the great thing about this show is people get a chance to see Adolph in a different light, Allan in a different light, and Vanessa in a different light. If you see me in a courtroom, you would not know that I have a sense of humor. You would not know that I can be corny sometimes. You do know that I can get an attitude in a hot second. But the bottom line is that this is what makes Detroit in black and white the greatest show on what? On these YouTube streets. We see you guys on Friday.
Okay.